This is the Rush Discuss, where the discuss is Rush. Hello and welcome to another episode. We are battling out Second Nature and The Way the Wind Blows today. And right off the bat, I'll just say that both of these are just such a musical treat to me to listen to. Not just because of how well the music fits with the lyrics, but they're just a lot of unexpected things that each of the band members are doing, which we'll get into later. But I just wanted to start off with that these are two of my all-time favorite songs.
Yeah, I definitely like one more than the other, not because of any reason other than I've listened to one of them way more than the other, which I will get into when we talk about them, but they're both very, very good, and they have you reflect, obviously. This is the reflective bracket, but even just re-listening to them, we just listened to them again just now before we started recording, and yeah, it just makes you think.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because like with Second Nature, it's so much of a because Neil said that it was kind of his definitive take on environmentalism and just like the trade-offs of all like how do we solve these problems. Mm-hmm. And so you get kind of a big statement, and then where the way the wind blows is very much like still kind of like nothing's really defined throughout. It's more of a reflection of the way that the world is, and just kind of that there's something building and brewing, something in the making, and reflecting on things that are like principles that just are kind of fairly consistent, but then how do you formulate that into something? And so it's kind of interesting to get, one is kind of like the formative look at a problem, and one is the reflective look at a problem, mm-hmm. but both very reflective in their own rights as the listener.
Yeah, that was a good overview for both of these. Shall we just dive in?
Yeah, let's start off with Second Nature. This was Hold Your Fire.
Say that's the wrong one.
To a higher office, open letter to the powers that be, to a god, a king, a head of state, a captain.
Getty has some mighty tasty vocals on that one.
I love his vocals in this whole song. I was commenting on that when we were listening to it, and they are very satisfying and pleasing to listen to. And the melody is so interesting, and really this whole album has interesting, like non-conventional melody lines. Yeah. And this one is obviously no exception. That honestly, like I always liked Hold Your Fire, but this track in particular, at first I was like, this is kind of a strange and hard melody for me to get into. And I'm not sure if I really like it. But then the more I dove into the song and really paid attention to the lyrics and enjoyed the vocal performance more, and then I just like got obsessed with this track.
Yeah, I was honestly very similar. Like this album I loved from the get-go, but this song, it was a very slow burn for me because it was, like you said, it was a melody that isn't instantly accessible. Although now I think how could it
right.
not be?
Exactly.
So
I feel the
accessible?
same way. I'm like, what am I talking about? But
Yeah, when you
having
first
just
get-
listened to it, I'm like, boy, I don't know how to take what's happening. But now it's like, oh, this is great. You know,
Yeah.
but it's different.
Which I think, because we talk a lot about how important it is for good music and good art to be accessible to people if you want them to be interested, and that's a big reason why people don't get into a lot of different forms of music, is because they can't get into it very quickly. And so, you know, you don't necessarily throw a song like Second Nature at someone who doesn't like new wave music, who doesn't like if they're just a huge like heavy metal fan.
Yeah,
You
it's
wouldn't throw
very
this because it wouldn't be
synthy.
accessible to them.
Yeah.
But I think that all good art is not always instantly accessible to everybody. That well-crafted art requires multiple exposure and multiple sessions of really absorbing it. And this can apply to a painting, a movie, music, anything that someone has created, book even, where on your first interaction with it, you can be like, well, this doesn't seem like very much. I don't really care about it. But a lot of times it requires a second go to start the process of even diving into to see that it's worth exploring.
So you mean the entire point of this podcast, Adam, to give people an opportunity to take a second look at Rush and some of these songs they may, like us sometimes, discount or sweep under the rug or don't pay attention to as much. You know, maybe this is a track that is like that. However, we put it in the reflective bracket, or you did. You made the brackets. I'm just along for the ride. No, but you put it in the reflective bracket for a reason. And we talked a little bit about that before. But then, yeah, so this track is interesting for us because it really was at an interesting time in our life where we had a huge passion, and we still have a huge passion about fitness. I obviously have a huge passion about fitness because I run a business about fitness, specifically pre-postnatal fitness, but fitness nonetheless. And so this whole journey started really like with this track. We had the idea of wanting to start a fitness facility and be able to help people in fitness. And that's what our goal was. And our journey took us a whole different direction, which is totally fine. But in the beginning, we were trying to think of names, and I was trying to think of what I wanted my business to be called. And we knew we wanted it to be Rush related. We wanted it to be a reference to Rush somehow. And so we settled on the name Second Nature Fitness because in my mind, it meant that our wellness and our health and our fitness ought to just be second nature to us and just what we do. And so we would help people get to a point where that was possible, because it's not possible in the beginning. It's hard. It's a whole new change. It's a lifestyle change. You have to do a lot of things that may be uncomfortable at first, whatever it may be, but that the goal would be that it would be second nature. The line, it ought to be second nature, was like what we based the whole thing off of. And like I said, we went down a different path. My business now is called Motherhood Barbell. It's different now, but it's where it started. And so this song is kind of personal to us, but then also the lyrics are very personal as well.
Yeah, because that's how it was for us. Because we actually, like, we made a pitch video and we did all this planning of what our facility would look like and how we could, as musicians who weren't in the fitness world or weren't really athletic growing up, what we were bringing to the table. And, you know, we brought up that a lot of times there's kind of a stigma on fitness that, oh, only certain people can be athletes, only certain people can, if they don't have the background, then there's really only so much that you can do.
Right.
But that moving your body and being fit is something that should be second nature to us as humans, because this is what provides us the opportunity to live a longer life. It makes it possible for us to meet the needs and demands of our lives, no matter what we're doing, without being, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not being put upon, but like,
Burden?
Yeah, burden. Like without it being overburdening on us to just meet our daily demands. And so that was kind of our motivating thing. We didn't want to say, hey, we're going to get you so fit, you're going to be able to compete in whatever. It was, we will help you be able to change some very basic habits and put some new habits in place so that you can meet life and not be worried about missing out on things because, oh, your back is sore all the time, or you just can't keep up with the kids. And because we don't want to be those grandparents who aren't able to always chase our grandkids. And so by just doing simple things every day, like it's now become second nature to just take care of ourselves, and we wanted to be able to pass that on to other people. And so, like Julianne said, this song really helped light that fire behind us to frame exactly what it is that we wanted to offer to people. And like she said, it changed what it looks like now of what Julianne's doing with her business. But it was such a huge moment for us to do that first scary step of even deciding to do something.
It was scary. And Rush has been there for us for a lot of scary moments, I feel like. And that was just one of them. So yeah, that was our reflection on the song. I want to change gears now about the music of this song is incredible. I absolutely love the synth, and especially just specifically because I could talk about this all day. I have to just choose. But I love the bridge. Today is different, tomorrow the same. It's hard to take the world the way that it came, like just the musical moment that is so awesome. I have nothing else to say. I love that whole thing
because it's I just have to talk about like the whole picture of this song, because it starts off so beautifully with that simple, in my opinion, probably one of the most perfect synth patches of all time, because it has enough piano in it to having an acoustic piano sound. Already it brings a lot of cool gravitas to whatever you're doing when you're especially in a rock and pop situation. But then just having that subtle, like, electronic synth treble, like, it kind of points the sound a little bit. And it just has this underlying buzz to it. And so it already is bringing an energy. And then it's nothing fancy. It's just a couple chords. And then you get these other textures coming in, and then Getty's voice just cuts right through everything. And it's almost like a soliloquy song from a musical in my mind. It's like,
I can see that.
Just very like center stage spotlight on you.
Yeah, it's like he sneaks in and he's like, I'm going to sing now.
and then
it just builds.
Yeah, everything is just building, and you get these unexpected twists and turns, and the bridge is a perfect example of that, where it's already kind of got some momentum building by this point, but then it just completely, it's like a switch is flipped and just switches. Today is different and tomorrow the same. It's hard to take the world the way that it came. Too many rapids keep us sweeping along. Too many captains keep on steering us wrong. It's hard to take the heat. It's hard to lay blame, to fight the fire while we're feeding the flames. So he repeats something that they've said before, but now given more context to it. And just Geddy's, it's hard to take the heat.
I was hoping you'd sing it because it's like, oh, that moment is just perfect.
Yeah, it's just such a great...
Like, this is the thing about music, is nobody's telling them or giving them rules as to how they should do their arrangements or sing it or what melodies or how to ornament it. It's just Geddy deciding that this is a great thing to do with my voice in this specific moment, and it works so well.
When it's so interesting that he's using a very like low seated in his voice approach to this. He's not singing with his mixed voice very often. He's singing more with his chest voice, which when you sing with your chest voice, that's just it's your more open, vulnerable sound. It's, it's more comforting to hear, and he's trying to draw you into the lyrics with that. And so he doesn't have a ton of high notes in this song. Like, there's some, obviously he's got a high voice, but this is a song that I can pretty much sing with the whole time. And I do not have a high voice, and so I love that he is so versatile in the way that he approaches things, and that everybody is always about serving the song.
Yeah.
And then I love Neil's percussion elements that he brings.
There's some great drum fills in this song too.
Like, it blows my mind every time just how cool it is when it, because there's this whole interlude of building music, and then it gets this surge, and Alex has this sweet slide down on the guitar, like pick slide, that just brings.
And then it goes back into the chorus.
Yeah, and you get Neil, which is like what's so cool, and this is what makes Neil so great, is you expect with a build up like this to have just the double leading into the moment, like leading into the hit where the lyrics come back in. But what he does is he has that build up, but then he, on an offbeat, starts a does 3 sets of those 3 hits, which you don't ever expect to hear. Like, even with me knowing that it's coming, I still get the entrance wrong every time.
It is really cool. They never do what you expect,
Yeah.
They always make it more interesting, because why do it boring?
Well, like Geddy's, he's got the little bass fill, do 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 do, while we're feeding the flame.
You've done a lot of singing on this episode so far.
But the first time he does it, he like has a little bit of a staccato, a little bit of a break between the notes, and then the second time he does it, exact same notes, but he has a more legato phrasing of it.
That is what makes them such effective musicians. It's that nothing is the same twice, and it keeps you interested. That is what I love about them, and what I appreciate as a musician about them.
And there's so much cool stuff in the lyrics about, like I love the phrase, "No one is blameless, but we're all without shame. Mm-hmm. We fight the fire while we're feeding the flames."
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because so many people, they see this song, they see the lyrics and they hear it and think, oh, this is because he starts a memo to a higher office, open letter to the powers that be, to a god, a king, a head of state, a captain of industry, to the movers and the shakers. Can't everybody see? But people focus on that, the first little bit of, well, obviously he's talking to all the powerful people and the people who are making policy decisions. You guys need to sort this out. You need to figure it out. But he says no one is blameless. Like, he's not lumping it into an us versus them thing. He's saying, like, we all need to bear responsibility and come together to figure things out, whether it's about the environment, whether it's just about living in this world in general. Because he also talks about that in a couple interviews where he says that, because he's saying, I know perfect's not for real. I thought we might get closer. He's not asking for us to instantly snap our fingers or to wave our magic wand and make everything all right. He's saying, I understand it's not going to be perfect because that's just how humans are. And nothing, whenever we get together as a society, there's no solution is going to be perfect. But can't we figure out something that will make it so that we can all flourish together? And I just love, that's what I love about the message, is that he doesn't, and it's so Neil, it's not like there's this one size fits all solution, we better just fight for this. It's like, let's be rational about this. We know we can't get a perfect solution, but how about we actually try to figure out something and be willing to compromise some things so that we can get something that's approaching perfection. There's a book that we're actually going to have a side special episode talking about this book, but that I think sums up perfectly Neil's message in this song. And yeah, so I could go on and on talking about this, but we'll save it for that episode to dive in, talking about this balance of how do we, like he says, I know progress has no patience, but something's got to give. And so how do we have progress in society without trampling on people?
Yeah. Wow. That was great. Thank you, Adam. And let us go. Oh, man. All right. Let us go to The Way the Wind Blows from a completely different era and album, Snakes and Arrows.
To let that one go a little longer.
Yeah, you have to get the transition because what a stark transition from where we started. This old fashioned bluesy guitar solo, like distant drumming intro thing.
Yeah, it's so cool because, I mean, this whole song, it's about the fighting between the East and the West, and just this whole idea that you have two competing worldviews. And so I think it's kind of represented in the way that the music is done, where you have a very American sounding blues.
It's interesting. Like I honestly never thought about it until today when we were reading through the lyrics again, and I'm like, why is this the intro? I mean, it's revisited again in the middle of the song as well, but like, why? I don't know.
And so then, so you've got the blues, which, and this is obviously just my interpretation of it, but where the blues represents the West very well.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have these elements of Eastern music thrown in there as well. Especially like when you get to Alex's guitar solo, he has the very like straightforward rock blues approach to it. And then he has this whole like Eastern influenced like meandering through in the solo, and then he kind of blends the two together.
It is interesting, isn't it?
And so, because the very first words in this, which when Getty comes in, it's like it's not as melodic as it is rhythmic.
Yeah,
obviously
it's like he's
there's
talking.
still a melody, but it is more approaching spoken.
Yeah.
Now it's come to this. It's like we're back in the dark ages. From the Middle East to the Middle West, it's a world of superstition. Now it's come to this. Wide-eyed armies of the faithful, from the Middle East to the Middle West, pray and pass the ammunition.
This is not... we were talking about this. So we were talking about the end of this song, actually, about... It goes through this whole thing. It's very rhythmic, and it's driving, and it's like you're being caught in the wind while you're listening to the song. And then it comes back in that blues thing. And then the very end, it ends like so... Well, it ends in major, and it is major. But anyway, it ends happy sounding. Like, you don't even know what just happened in the rest of the song. And you're just like, oh, this is peaceful at the end. And you're like, wow.
Well, I mean, you get every time it hits the chorus, it pulls back, and it just has the folksy.
Yeah, you're right. It's just interesting that you kind of forget that, though, and then you get to the end, and you're like, oh.
With how bombastic the verses are, you forget those moments of clarity.
Yeah, it's the folksy acoustic guitar sound that's thrown in. There's so much going on in this track.
Which to me, this is almost like if you wanted a track that was kind of like what Test for Echo, if it had progressed farther, was. This is this track, because you get that heaviness mixed with the lighter folk feel.
That's really interesting thought. I have not thought of it that way. Do you feel like this album is that way, or just this track?
Not so much the whole album, but definitely this track to me feels
that's
that
really
way.
Cool.
But yeah, so musically it's just such a cool.
It's interesting.
Cool track to me. I've always this one. So with Snakes and Arrows, when that came out, oh gosh, I can't remember how old I was. I could if I did the math, but I'm not going to right now. But I was a teenager, and by this time I was like full on into Rush, and then it was, the last one that had been released was Vapor Trails, and I wasn't paying super close attention to everything Rush at this point. But then it was enough. I was paying close enough attention that I saw it the day that they announced that this album was going to be released. Yeah.
Oh, what, 2006? Is that what it was? I can't remember. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, just... But at any rate, it was... I think it was 2007.
Or maybe it was.
I can't remember. And I'm sure I'm sure that plenty of you listeners are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you don't know.
We are tired parents recording after bedtime.
No, but so when I saw that it was announced and they had, I believe...
What? That's wrong.
She just opened Apple Music and it says 2013.
That's wrong.
Which is definitely false. But at any rate, yeah, they released it and Far Cry was released. And
2007. You're welcome. Sorry.
And Far Cry just like blew my mind. and I was like happy about that. There's new Rush, and
gosh, what I would have done to have been there.
And so then when the album finally came out, and I was able to listen to the whole thing, Far Cry was obviously a huge one, but then The Way the Wind Blows, I was instantly drawn to it. But it was so interesting because I actually hadn't listened to Test for Echo at this point yet. So I hadn't really done much in the way of their heavier stuff. And so this was kind of one of the first times where I was like really challenged as far as listening, because I wasn't super into heavy metal, and so the start of this, and I wasn't super into blues, and so the start of this was just very confusing to me. But I loved the chorus.
I do too.
And the chorus was what kept me going back and just listening on repeat. And
that's exactly how I felt too, though. The exact same way of, oh, this chorus is so good and I want to hear that part of this song, so I'm going to listen to this song. That's exactly how it was for me.
Yeah. But then little by little over the years, it just clicks, and it's just such a great piece of music. And I love the lyrics because like all great pieces of art, it challenges you.
It does. It's like we said about Second Nature, it's in the reflective bracket. It really has you think. And not necessarily about things that you would think about day to day. It's a topic that you may never think about. Well, and now he's bringing it up.
Well, it's a topic that a lot of people still are very sensitive about.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he makes it very clear what he's talking about, too, what he's referencing, the fact that in the middle of it, now it's come to this hollow speeches of mass deception from the Middle East to the Middle West, like crusaders in an unholy alliance. And, I mean, you think about at the time that he would have been writing these lyrics, this is like full swing, the war on terror is going. Like finally the leaders of the US were able to convince the people that we needed to go put a stop to all these backwards terrorists, and they just hate us for our freedom, and so we need to make sure that we bring democracy over there. And then fairly quickly, those who were paying attention, who hadn't already been convinced that this was a horrible idea, they could see, oh, this is just more of the same. This isn't doing anything to make the world better. This is just hollow speeches of mass deception. And you think, I mean, now it's, 20 years after the fact, people look back and just about everybody knows that was just a huge mistake, that everything was wasted resources, wasted lives, and to accomplish nothing. I mean, now the fact that the U.S. government and the military is fighting alongside Al-Qaeda to perpetuate a horrible war of genocide in Yemen, but all started with this idea that, oh, we need to fight back because the terrorists came and they attacked us on 9/11, and so we need to make sure that we need to punish them. Which obviously, when there is an attack, it's well within reason to want to bring the people who started that, who initiated that attack. You want justice in that situation. But the unfortunate thing is that it was used as an opportunity to get everything that they wanted and had wanted for decades. And when I say they, I mean the war hawks who were at the head of the military-industrial complex, as President Eisenhower put it, which is just, and that to me is one of the biggest tragedies of our lifetimes, is that they took a moment where people were actually united, and took a tragedy to then use it to go perpetuate more pain and suffering throughout the world and get the people's stamp of approval on it. And I mean, you had Colin Powell speaking before Congress, lying, and he acknowledged that he was lying, saying, "Oh yeah, they've got these weapons of mass destruction. We have to go." And he used his position to say, "Yes, we have to fight this war." And it wasn't even against the people that had initiated it. It's this completely different country that happens to fit right in line with our desires that we've had for decades. And like Neil points out, they were just hollow speeches of mass deception. And he brings up the idea that, like, I love that line, "Now it's come to this, wide-eyed armies of the faithful." Just with the wide-eyed line there, it just always makes me think of people who are just in lockstep, who've substituted other people's thinking for their own. And it doesn't matter if it's one religious ideology versus another, or one political ideology versus another. If you aren't thinking for yourself, then you just become part of this wide-eyed army of the faithful. And it's so easy to just look at other people and not think of them as human. And, this whole song is just about people who are raised in situations where they're surrounded by this way of thinking, where we fight for our cause and we don't really examine what this cause is. And whatever it is, whether it's like, you will only vote this way because this is the way our family votes, or you will believe this because this is what our family just believes. Whatever it is can be so twisted to, now you have these people who growing up where it's like, how much choice did they really have in the matter as they were in their formative years to be able to decide what they believed? And now you get these people who are just so willing to go in and just follow in lockstep with something that now we look back on and see was so horrible. And so many things are like that in the world. And so I love this song in that it does look for the hopefulness in it. It's like, we can only grow the way the wind blows. We can only bow to the here and now, or be broken down blow by a blow. And so it's like, he acknowledges that oftentimes we are put in situations just through our birth, that we're beat upon by these winds, these prevailing doctrines, and it can be really hard to fight out of it because we feel like we will just be broken down by the wind that's going. And so we just kind of grow in this way to conform to that. But I think the hope in it is that we can, if we can look on other people with a little bit of grace and hope for the future, we can break the cycle. We can break the cycle in ourselves. We can hopefully break the cycle in other people, and we can encourage other people to wake up and think differently than what everybody's being told. And so we aren't just going in lockstep, but that we're actually hopefully putting in practice with second nature, with the message there, working together to bring us closer to perfect. And so I think it's a pretty powerful pairing, which I didn't think about when I was putting them together. But I think that, there's just so much that Neil is speaking just so pointedly about in The Way the Wind Blows. And just quick plug, if you haven't read it, read this book. It's incredible. It's enough already. Time to End the War on Terrorism by Scott Horton. Excellent read. He is one of the biggest heroes of mine as far as being anti-war, and he's just so rational, and so he breaks everything down if you want to know about all of that stuff. But yeah, we have to face the fact that our circumstances are what they are, and we sometimes feel like we can't resist, but we do have, I think we need to all make an effort to overcome and break any of those cycles that we've been living through.
Thanks. I have nothing to say. I really don't. So, all of that in mind, what should we pick? Well, I know my choice, but do you know yours?
I think so. I think ours are the same, even though I absolutely love The Way the Wind Blows. And as you just heard, I'm very passionate about the...
Yes. I mean, I knew that already, but now everyone else does.
I'm very passionate about the message of both of these songs, but I think that Second Nature, because it is the more complete message with a lot more hope and a lot more laying out what is to be done.
I agree. I choose Second Nature because if I was going to choose one, I'd want it to be that one. I enjoy listening to that one a little bit more than The Way the Wind Blows. And yeah, I thought I had more to say, but I don't. Yeah, Second Nature is our choice then for both of us.
Yeah.
All right. That was intense, everybody. No, it was good. Like, that's what we want for this bracket, to be reflective. And then we have one more pairing in this bracket, and then we're going to have a more lighthearted bracket after this one.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. But that's it. Yeah, that's our episode. And then next week is our last pairing for the reflective bracket with Middletown Dreams versus Mission, another Hold Your Fire, which that's just how it ended up working out. But yeah, we look forward to that last pairing / I'm dreading it because that's going to be difficult. But we'll get to that next time.
Yeah, because it probably won't be next week, but I mean...
Oh, I didn't... Did I say week? I meant to say next time.
I mean, it's fine because we've explained earlier with the way that this is all getting put together. But yeah, we look forward to having this discussion. And I am looking forward to being in the next bracket because I've loved this bracket. We've had so many great discussions. But I am looking forward to feeling a little bit lighter at the end of
it is
episodes.
It is a lot. It is a lot. But yeah, we look forward to that. And don't forget to check out our website, rushdiscuss.com. You can learn a little bit more about us and listen to episodes on there, or obviously connect with us on Instagram or email us at rushdiscuss at rush.discuss@gmail.com. Any comments, or if you are watching this on YouTube, comments on there are great. We enjoy the feedback and love it when you disagree, because it is the point that we all have our own opinions, and if you agree, that's great too. So
yeah, and to that point, if anybody does disagree, it doesn't hurt my feelings that you disagree, and it doesn't mean that I will, like, if we were to meet in person, I would be totally fine. Like, it doesn't bother me that other people believe differently, and I love that people believe differently. And so, because I think that it's important that we can live with our differences, and if we can all agree that human flourishing matters and that we're all trying to work towards the best kind of world that we can have, then that's all good with me.
Yeah, and I think overall Rush fans are pretty cool people, at least we've found. We have loved connecting with you, and we look forward to more of that. Till next time.